video where that fucking fat ass boy millionaire.
You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda, hosted by two teachers who break down a different propaganda song each episode. On this episode, we are chatting about the song Rock for Sustainable Capitalism, track 7 on 2005's Potemkin City Limits LP, which came out on Fat Records. And we're excited to chat about it tonight.
Yeah, this is a pretty well-known song, dare I say notorious, about a situation involving Fat Records, Rock against Bush, and the politics surrounding the 2004 presidential election, the punk voter movement, and kind of a whole lot more.
Yeah, there's a bunch of context that we should talk about as well before we actually get into the actual episode. And I see that you found a little statement from propaganda dating back a couple of years here.
Yeah, so you could still find this on punknews.org. It says that propaganda recorded a song for the Fat Comp titled Free John Hinckley, but it was removed. And I'm going to read the kind of the press release, though that kind of seems like a little bit of an over-the-top term for propaganda. It says here, remember last month when my fine feathered friend Mr. Todd Kowalski informed you that we had recorded a song for the upcoming Rock Against Bush comp coming out on Fat Records? Yes, that's the one. You have an excellent memory. Well, guess which band just got booted from it because they refused to remove a pot shot aimed at international billionaire, global financier, war profiteer, and all-around asswipe George Soros from their liner notes. No, it wasn't Good Charlotte. Good guess, though. Try again. That's right, it was us. Next time someone comes knocking on our door, hawking the virtues of joining a unified front against something, we'll be sure to ask them this. Unity on whose terms? At what cost? This message not brought to you by George Soros.
Yeah, this was a really interesting situation. And I know that they addressed this throughout many interviews, but Fat Mike also offered a little bit of clarification based on that statement from propaganda. He says, hello, everybody. While this propaganda thing has gotten a little out of hand when there really is no issue, a lot of people seem to want an explanation, so here it is in detail. I asked propaganda to be on the Rock Against Bush comp, and they agreed. They also made it clear they didn't want to be censored and that their political views differ from ours. I said no problem and that I would be stoked to have a different viewpoint on the album as long as it wasn't pro-Bush. So they send the song, which happens to be a song off their last album, but with a different title. The lyrics are about how both political parties in the U.S. are totally fucked and that it really doesn't matter which one wins because there will not be a significant change in the capitalist system anyway. So he then goes on a little bit to talk about, he says, okay, this is not really the message I'm trying to convey because I believe that Democrats are a bit better than Republicans. And I think that Bush is, messing up the world worse than anyone possibly could, which I wonder if Fat Mike would look back on that a little differently now. But then he says, but I still want the song on the comp. So we get the liner notes from the band, and at the end it says this message was not brought to you by George Soros. This is where the problem starts. George Soros is a billionaire who got his money from exploiting the foreign currency exchange. He screwed a bunch of countries to make his money. It is also important to note that he is also a member of the Carlyle Group, which is a company that makes money from selling weapons. Okay, that sucks. Meanwhile, he has been giving close to $500 million annually to progressive causes and has founded a network of philanthropic organizations in over 50 nations throughout the planet. He's spending a good part of his fortune trying to get Bush out of office. Maybe he feels guilty or something. I don't know. The point is that he has given money not to us, but to many great organizations such as MoveOn.org and America Coming Together, and these organizations help support us. I didn't want an anti-Soros message on the first Rock Against Bush comp, because I don't want to make enemies within our movement. I am trying to unite people, not alienate them from each other. So I asked Chris from Propaganda if he wouldn't mind taking that last Soros comment out of their liner notes. He said he wouldn't take anything out. I said, okay. Then asked if they would mind being on the Rock Against Bush Volume 2 comp instead of the first one. And there were a few reasons why Fat Mike wanted to do that. First, MoveOn.org is going to send a mass email to 3 million members encouraging them to buy the first comp So letting them know that the more CDs we sell, the more of an impact it will make. It will get picked up by the media like CNN. So that was an interesting thing. And like the Lawrence Arms, who will be relevant here in a little bit, were asked to be on the second one also. So Propaganda was asked to move to the second comp, and they basically said no thanks, and that was it. So those were the two statements from these two bands about this situation that led up to this, surrounding the punk voter movement. I also was digging a little deeper, and I found another response from Chris, and I found this as a quote attributed to Chris on a YouTube comment, but I wasn't able to verify it in any printed sources. So I have a link to the YouTube comments here, but this is something that I'm not entirely sure about. But Chris apparently later said it wasn't really the Soros thing. We didn't really want to be on the CD to begin with. The whole thing wasn't really reflective of our politics. We gave them a 60-second outtake that wasn't really anything special. And I shoved in the Soros thing to try and distance us from MoveOn.org and other progressive democratic causes that Propaganda don't support, but Mike and Rock Against Bush did. And then he says he didn't really care about George Soros, but that he just looked at a list of big Democratic donors and picked his name at random. So it's kind of a wild story. There's a lot of like little things here that just seem to like snowball and spiral over time a little bit,
And definitely going through comments on YouTube and elsewhere, not like building amongst the fans as well. I mean, this seemed to kind of, fire up and get people kind of riled up in different camps, and whether or not like who to support or who was quote unquote right or quote unquote wrong. Maybe like the punk version of kind of a, like a East and West Coast rap rivalry.
Yeah. And the comments on this song, Rock for Sustainable Capitalism, there are so many internet comments, and people really spent a lot of time debating this back when this album came out. And like, I can't believe that all these comments are still just on the internet 15, 16 years later. It's all still there in all of our YouTube glory. So if anybody out there listening is looking for a quite a spectacular rabbit hole to go down, you can go and read all of the debates. And then there was even one comment where Toby from Fat Records, who's like an employee at Fat Records, apparently got into a really heavy war of words with somebody, where I think he said that this is the dumbest comment I've ever read on the internet and things like that. And it was a really wild exchange. So this song really fired up a lot of people.
It really feels like the first divisive Propaganda song that we've talked about.
Yeah, this is a hard one. I was like a little, I was power washing my driveway earlier today, and I was like in a state of avoidance about preparing for this episode, because I was like, man, this is like, this song is like asking people to like, choose a side in an issue that's like 15 years old now at this point, 16 years old. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it felt like when I was thinking about preparing for this episode, it almost felt like I was like in high school. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I kind of had a little bit of an opposite reaction, in that I started planning for it a little early, because I know, like, regardless of what I say, I'm probably going to make someone angry, though of course I don't want to, but just trying to really parse my words in a way to not be inflammatory toward anyone, really.
Yeah, which is really interesting, because, I was watching the Fat Records documentary earlier, because they specifically addressed this song in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, Chris, after the explanation about this, Chris says, it's propaganda. What do you expect? So like, there's this like thing where, they're like presenting it like a ha-ha, kind of like a funny jab at Fat Mike. And I think that it kind of like snowballed a little bit differently than maybe the band was expecting. I think that everybody thought that everybody would think it'd be a little bit funnier because that's how they presented in the documentary. But it kind of, it snowballed a little bit. And I think it changed the course of the band's involvement with the record label to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I was looking inside the Potemkin City Limits liner notes, and another little ditty caught my eye in relation to the whole Soros debacle. In the inside of the Potemkin City Limits liner notes, the band writes, "We have no sponsors because we're not posers."
I forgot about this.
But we would like to take a ride in Dexter Holland's multi-million-dollar private jet that he's christened Anarchy Airlines, which clearly honors the spirit and vision of a long history of people who have struggled and often died fighting concentrations of wealth and power. Pretty fly for an asswipe. So asswipe is all over this thing as well. This record not brought to you by George Soros, and there it is again, right in the liner notes for Potemkin City Limits. So, this is a pretty well-known situation that listeners likely already have their opinions on, most likely. And I think that for these fellas now, for Chris and for Fat Mike, I think this is all water under the bridge. They've collaborated a lot since then, and they did the reissue of How to Clean Everything. They did a new vinyl pressing of Potemkin City Limits where they, did it on the green and brown vinyl pressing. I think it might have been green, brown, and white. I can't remember what the triple vinyl or the triple color pressing was, but they've collaborated since, even though Propaganda is not officially like on the label anymore.
Right.
They still are working together. Chris and Todd, and Jord appear in the Fat Wreck documentary. So, this is all, I'm wondering if we're just like, talking about something that's just like water under the bridge, long gone, doesn't even matter anymore,
We're reigniting this flame war. We're bringing it back.
Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah, so this is going to be an exciting one.
So, Greg, tell me who the guest is for today.
So I wanted to share that Fat Mike statement earlier in full, mostly, before the interview portion, because all that context is relevant to our guest on this episode. Our guest is Brendan Kelly, who is 1/3 of the band The Lawrence Arms. I've been a Lawrence Arms fan for 20 years because them being from Chicago, they were one of the bands who would turn up in St. Louis regularly. I saw them a ton of times when I was in high school and, into college. I've also been a fan of Brendan's blog, Bad Sandwich Chronicles, which he began writing, I believe, in the aftermath of touring for O Calcutta. And I found his observations and writing like super hilarious, super interesting. And I also really like the current podcast that he does with Tim Crisp called Road to the Skeleton Coast, where they break down all of his career's discography. So I listen to that podcast a lot. And Brendan brings up Propaganda regularly. So I reached out to him and asked him to come on the show. And he wanted to chat rock for sustainable capitalism, which is super awesome to me because the Lawrence Arms and Propaganda were both on Fat during those Rock Against Bush years. And the Lawrence Arms are on the second Rock Against Bush comp. And, Brendan's just a super massive Propaganda fan. So I'm really excited and grateful that Brendan is here to chat about, loving Propaganda and what this band means to him, and also this wild rock for sustainable capitalism song, which ignited such a fiery debate in the punk scene in like 2004. So let's go have a chat with let's go to my chat with Brendan Kelly, and then we'll be back after that. Okay. Brendan Kelly, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
Hey, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. So, Brendan, I have loved every episode of Road to the Skeleton Coast where you explore your discography. And I just want to start off by also saying that Skeleton Coast is a great record, and anybody out there listening should check it out if they haven't. I have a funny question. As a guy who's been on the road in a band for a long time, how does your family now feel about your podcasting prowess these days?
They just know that I go to the basement every now and then. I think is kind of the thing. I mean, like if I had like a weird fetish porn jerking off compulsion, or like I needed to like skin possums or something, it would probably be about the same. I mean, the amount that my family understands anything that I do is so like it's so limited to like when somebody sees me in the grocery store and goes, "Hey, you're the guy from the Lawrence Arms," and they go, "Oh yeah, my dad. People know who he is." Like,
yeah.
that's 100% of it. Like when it comes to like the day-to-day shit, they think I'm just bullshitting around. None of it seems like I'm doing anything at all. And I mean, makes sense, I mean, like if like my dad was like a coal miner,
Yeah.
looking at my work ethic right now, I mean, he'd be like, "So this is your job," So, I can't blame them for not totally comprehending, but yeah, they don't give a shit about any of this.
Nice. Well, so this is a song by song propagandy podcast. First of all, are you a propagandy or a propagandy person?
I say propagandy because that's what they say.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to go with propagandy. I have converted. I'm a convert to propagandy. I'm sure you are as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say propagandy because it sounds like a little more sophisticated or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize that they're just a bunch of fucking prairie skids
Yeah.
by their own. I mean, that's their words, not mine,
For sure.
And it's like, and they're like, "Hey, this is George from Propagandy," and I'm like, "Okay, well, Propagandy it is,"
Yep,
Like,
exactly. It's
So-
like how we in the U.S. say Germany instead of Deutschland, but everybody who lives in Germany says Deutschland, and I'm like, why don't we just call it Deutschland? Because if they say it that way, why can't we as well? So if propagandy says propagandy, that's how I'm going to say it too.
I feel like that's basically a general principle that actually, Greg, you're getting into something that's actually very like salient right now, which is like, if anybody would like you to call them something
Mm-hmm.
or not call them something, it's only respectful to do. It's the bare minimum, right? So if it's like, "Hey, it's propagandy," then you say propagandy. If it's like, "I am a her,"
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, okay, her.
100%.
It does nothing. Like the obstacles are only in your head. It's the bare courtesy to to call people what they're supposed to be called. The funny one is Turbo Negro, because like everybody tries to say Turbo Negro, and it's like, do you know what their band name originally was? It wasn't Turbo Negro. Turbo Negro is actually a lot more close to the original indoctrination of what they were trying to do when they were wearing blackface and stuff like that. And yeah, I made it weird. So
Awesome. No, it's fine. Hey, so you do a podcast with Tim Crisp, who also has the Alkaline True As You Were podcast. Do you realize that I totally stole this entire idea from David and Tim directly?
No, none of. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's putting a lot of pieces together that I have never thought about putting together. But yeah,
Is your brain as full as mine the last like 5 months? Like I feel like I can't handle almost anything these days.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, this is why our podcasts are like fucking 3 hours long. My brain is always full. It's like I just have a talking compulsion. I'm trying to actually limit it on this so we can like do the thing, and I don't just like overrun it by talking about Turbo Negro and shit like that. But
Yeah.
it's like all of a sudden it runs away from me pretty quick.
No, it's fine. So Brennan, let's go into propaganda here. Tell me about your discovery of the band. What year was it? What was the first song you heard? What standout memories do you have of those early experiences?
Well, the first song I heard was homophobe. Maybe it was homophobes who just pissed off because they can't get laid on the Fat Music for Fat People comp
Oh, sweet.
that I got at the show that my old band Slapstick played with NoFX and Face to Face and 10-foot pole at the Fireside Bowl in Chicago in probably 1994.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been my first, but I feel like I heard Pigs Will Pay before that. I don't know how that would have been possible. I think I might be like retrofitting history.
Okay.
Those are definitely the first two Propaganda songs I heard. And then when I was 17, later on, I was so entranced by just the band name and like the sort of the volatility of the songs that I had heard. I was getting my wisdom teeth pulled, and I went out to Reckless Records, which was around the corner from my house at the time, and I bought 15 Buzz and How to Clean Everything.
Oh yeah.
And those two records, maybe it was the Percocets, but
Yeah.
it really fucking changed my whole life. Like those two records really were like definitive. So I mean, Anti-Manifesto, you could say, was the first song I heard, but that really like shuffled my worldview quite a bit. And yeah, funny story. 2 days after that, my band Slapstick, we played a show with the Pink Lincolns, who are an old Lookout band.
Yeah, I remember them.
And I still had the stitches in my mouth, and my face was all swollen and I was already like, no, I've seen the other side. I can't go back now.
Oh my God. And I know that whenever we were emailing back and forth before, you mentioned that you have another standout memory regarding the song Haile Selassie. So do you have any like a big memory regarding that tune as well from that first record?
Well, yeah, I mean, like my mom is I grew up in a small apartment with just my mom, and I don't, just to be clear, we weren't poor or anything. Like I'm not trying to like play like some sort of like poverty card or anything like that. It was just me and my mom in a 2-bedroom apartment. We were middle class, son and mom, single mom, right? But she was very liberal and very permissive. And the only song that I've ever turned down, I mean, like I play Metallica, I play fucking The Misfits, I play whatever, Minor Threat, Haile Selassie up your ass. When it got to the fuck religion part, I was like, oh no, I have to turn this down because my Roman Catholic mother will not appreciate this.
Yeah.
As liberal and permissive as she was, and still is. And actually now I think that she's like the ripe old age of 73 or whatever. I think she might be more amenable to the actual discourse that's being proposed in that song. But, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm not taking this fucking chance. That seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, well,
I want to go skateboarding later. I don't want my mom yelling at me about the words "fuck religion."
Yeah, and she'd come in, maybe you'd lose your cassette or something, or whatever you're listening to,
Yeah.
and then you'd have to go down and track down another copy, and there's another $9, and then you're out some money, and then you're out a bunch of time. So it's kind of, it's a gamble we take whenever we're young people with those explicit lyrics records. Remember, you know what I mean?
Oh, goddamn right. Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. That's sort of what makes that song so special, sort of to me, is that like I never had that issue. Like I play Appetite for Destruction in the car with my mom. I play Straight Outta Compton in the car with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
None of that shit ever phased her, but I knew endemically that song, Haile Selassie, was fucking incendiary.
Yeah, it was like crossing a line for sure.
Well, I mean, to
Back then, when you're a kid, it is.
It's so fun. Well, I mean, like we've like grown out of religion as a culture, so it doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like now that's like you might as well be saying like fuck unicorns or like, you know, like fuck the Lucky Charms guy. You know, like it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But to the generation before me, and I'm like a Gen Xer, so I'm talking about like early boomers or whatever. Like my mom, like religion was still a huge, you know, my mom still goes to church. I think she's actually quit the Catholic Church finally, but she used to go to church like twice a week. My grandfather used to go to church twice a day.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, Italians, man, you know,
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
It changes. So, you know, those first records, you know, How to Clean Everything, Let's Talk More Rock, they have a very specific sound. They have a very specific time and place. But the sound of the band has morphed so much over the years. And I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how your fandom of Propagandhi progresses over the years as they shift and experiment with different sounds. Tell me about your journey as a listener.
What a fucking good question that I have such a bad answer to.
Okay, go for it.
I don't care. It doesn't fucking affect me at all. It's like, those are talented musicians playing really cool songs. I really like the John Sampson, Chris Hanna dynamic. I really like the Todd Kowalski, Chris Hanna dynamic. You know, basically here's what, okay. Greg, it's like, if I've got a plumber who comes in and fucking fixes my toilet one day, right? And then, you know, 10 years later, he's like, well, my son is who's taking over the plumbing company now. And that guy comes in and fixes the toilet just as well. I don't care.
Yes.
You know, like, I like what they do. They've got a great workmanship, and, you know, when they disappoint me, I'll probably fucking be quiet about it, but you know, they've got a pretty high bullshit detector, which is something that I admire in a band quite a bit.
Nice. You know, you're very well known for the Lawrence Arms, the Broadways, slapstick. You mentioned slapstick a couple times about, you know, being in that 90s scene a little bit. I'm curious if you have any cool stories of like meeting Propagandhi, playing shows with them, or anything else that springs to mind.
Well, yeah, dude, we were on tour in California, and I mean, I was probably 17 at the time. And, I mean, this was, obviously, I am like older than dirt. So, you know, when I was 17, there was no cell phones or anything like that. And we had heard the Propagandhi was playing this show. We had a day off on tour in California.
What year was this?
Probably 1995,
Okay.
if I had to guess. And we were like, holy shit, Propagandhi's playing. And we were all just such huge fans.
Yeah.
And we were all just such dumb kids. We had the day off. We're in California. I don't know how we even got the information. Like, I just remember, like, one of our guys was like, dude, Propagandhi's playing in a town called Guadalupe, California, which, by the way, I've never heard of before or since this very day.
I've never heard of it either.
It's a migrant farm town.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, it's all temporary workers, which, I mean, it's pretty on brand.
It's very appropriate.
And so we were just like, let's just go for it. And so we just drove to the show, and we were like, hey, we're here to load in. And the guys were like, what are you talking about? And we were like, yeah, no, we're supposed to be playing this show. And they're like, yeah, you're not on this show. And we're like, we drove all the way from Chicago.
You gotta be shitting me, man.
and just absolutely bullshitted our way onto this fucking show. And they were like, okay, you can play as the doors open. And we were like, thank you. We're not looking to get paid. And the funny thing is that the promoter was this dude, Eddie Numskull, who's gone on to be a very successful promoter in sort of like I don't know what you call that, Orange County and North sort of zone of California, the fucking disgusting hillbilly zone or whatever. And we were like, we have no place to sleep. And he was like, I guess you guys can sleep in my house, but it's very small. And we went back to his house. And it literally, his house was like, I'm not shitting you. It was like 8 feet wide, 20 feet long, and then a bathroom. And we were like, oh. And we were a ska band. So we're like, all right, well, so 2 people in the van, 1 person in the bathtub. You're gonna sleep right next to him and his girlfriend. It was just, but yeah, we played that show and they were great, and they were like, so it was so cool to see them. I mean, like, as like a much more insurgent, cool band than I was used to seeing in like a big situation. And a bunch of skinheads showed up and were like throwing things at them. And then Chris like definitely caught something and put it in his mouth, and it ended up being like raw hamburger meat or something like that. And he was like, that better not be what I think it is, fucker. That's like a quote that I will never forget in my life. And the guy that threw it was standing right next to me. And at the time, I'm like, I'm like fucking tall, skinny, and my hair is cheetah print. And I'm wearing a shirt that says straight edge, and I'm like staggering drunk. And I'm like, oh, he's looking at me. And so afterwards I went up and I was like, hey, I just want you to know that wasn't me that threw the meat at you. And he's like, I know it wasn't you. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I didn't talk to him again for 20 years. But
Holy shit. Have you guys spoken about this at all since then?
No. No.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So, oh my God, that is absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that you were willing to share that story, because that is freaking amazing. All right. So Brendan, when we got in touch, you said that Potemkin, this is a quote from you, Potemkin is my favorite aggressive rock album ever. And I realize it's a big picture question, but tell me why you feel that way, because that is sort of like off what I would expect from somebody who was there since the beginning of Propaganda, because we tend to latch on to the first thing that we hear from a band, and that kind of remains our favorite thing. So tell me why you feel so strongly about Potemkin City Limits as a record.
I think that you're putting a scholarship on why people like things that I don't adhere to, and I mean, like, I necessarily have to not adhere to. And I'm not trying to like throw you under the bus here.
No, it's fine. Do it.
But like it, for me, if this is going to be like a life thing, I'm quoting Geep Chodo right now from Fugazi. If this is going to be a life thing, if this is going to be a music thing, I have to believe that everybody can progress. And like, I'm not going to get caught up in the first thing I heard. I'm always going to give the artist a chance to grow or redeem themselves. You know, like there was a couple of Bad Religion albums I didn't totally love, but they've come back, and the fucking Age of Unreason record is like insanely good.
Yep.
You know, and like you know, No Effects, their best album is fucking So Long and Thanks for the Shoes.
Yeah, I agree, actually.
And Propaganda's best album is Potemkin City Limits. And so I judge art by the art that is there. And that's it. Like, I don't have any fondness for the past. That is, it's actually a very common refrain in thematically in Lawrence Arms songs and in Falcon songs and in Wandering Bird songs. I don't care what happened before. It's like, fuck, you know, it's like, to use a very crass example, it's like, if I order a fucking dude to my room and he walks in and he's like some 70-year-old like tub of shit, and I'm like, I'm looking at this picture of a very hot guy, and he's like, oh, that used to be me. It's like, well, that's not who I'm getting. So, you know, like you got to judge everything on the fucking moment that it's happening in, and you've got to, and that record. Why do I say it's my favorite aggressive rock and roll album of all time? Because it's the one I like the most. I don't have a better answer than that.
Well, and you know, I'm really glad you brought up that Bad Religion example because I feel the exact same way about Age of Unreason. And I was so freaking stoked to see you guys at Anthology last summer in Rochester, New York, open up for Bad Religion on that tour because seriously, you guys sounded great. And then Bad Religion seriously sounded better than I've ever heard them sound live ever. And I know I couldn't believe it.
It's a real shame to blow them off the stage every night, but you know, we had to do what we had to do.
Got to do it. All right, so that tour was amazing, and I got to interview Mike Dimkich from Bad Religion in a bar across the street from the show, and we just talked about riding bikes for like an hour. And
I say, what'd you talk about? Riding bikes?
Yeah, I got to buy him a beer and everything.
That motherfucker! Ah! Sorry, my microphone fell.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, that guy's riding bikes, man. Like when their bus pulls up, he gets out his bike, gets out his Lycra.
Yep.
Goes out on a bike ride. I mean,
dude, it was amazing because I was like texting him on Instagram the entire day of the show, and he's like, "Yeah, I just did 35 miles, and I'm actually going to go out and do 25 more. So we're gonna have to wait for the interview." And I'm sitting in a bar in Rochester, New York, like waiting for him. Like, oh my god! So then his interview with me, it takes until the last second, and I'm just waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it. And I waited for it, but my god, that dude rode a lot of miles that day.
Yeah,
so
it's
awesome.
Crazy.
All right, so real quick, when I asked you to pick a song for this podcast, you said Rock for Sustainable Capitalism. I feel like the lead up and context of Potemkin City Limits is essential for understanding this particular song. You know, we had the Rock Against Bush compilations, of which Lawrence Arms contributed Necrotism, decanting the Insalubrious Cyborg Midnight Part 7 to Volume 2, which is like a totally like sci-fi version of a Dillinger 4 song title, which is freaking great.
Well, I was trying to make fun of Coheed and Cambria.
Oh, sweet. Oh, that actually totally makes sense now. Thank you for explaining that to me. You know, I've been thinking about that for like, you know, all day. I was like, what the hell? And it was following Op Ivy in the track listing, which, you know, was pretty freaking cool for you, I'd imagine. And then we had like the tours and the Not My President t-shirts and the punk voter movement in support of the candidacy of John Kerry's run against George W. Bush. And then like Rock for Sustainable Capitalism comes out, this song. So what for you is like some must know context with regards to the lead up to the release of Potemkin that stands out to you that will help us understand this time and place?
Well, without getting my nose into business that I don't belong putting it in, I just know that very officially, like on the record, Propaganda the band was not on board with this like support of this like milquetoast Democrat candidate, you know, just fucking ketchup air the husband or whatever. And Fat Mike was like, man, Mike was the coolest though. He was just like, yeah, we're doing this. It's a great idea. You gotta get on board. And they're like, fuck you. From what I know, I don't know too much about like what went on behind the scenes. I really don't want to speculate. But they came to a disagreement about that, you know? And I feel that Mike felt his heart was in the right place. Propaganda felt like punk rock meant something completely different than supporting John Kerry. And I don't think either of them were wrong. But that became a exciting lightning rod for people. And this song, I think, is the metal ball on the tip of that lightning rod.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I know that you were, you know, buddies with Fat Mike, and this is like a super popular movement. You know, I was 22. I was living in Columbia, Missouri during all of that.
Oh, holy shit! You're a Missouri boy,
dude. I grew up in St. Louis. I saw Lawrence Arms at the Firebird and at the freaking High Point and at the Creepy Crawl, and my friends and I would wait for Lawrence Arms shows in St. Louis. I mean, for years. Like,
girl. I was born in St. Louis.
You were our guys, you know, in St. Louis. We would wait for you guys and Alkaline Trio to come through, and then it was, you know, I was at the fabled Taking Back Sunday support show at the High Point. When you guys were watching Taking Back Sunday like take off, even though they were like opening for you guys, like I was there, man. It was awesome. So I was living in Columbia, going to Mizzou. I was a senior when this album came out, and when the Bush election was won in 2004. Rock for Sustainable Capitalism comes out in 2005. And it took me a long time to process that song because I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing in the lyrics and reading in the lyrics. You know, you guys were like a Fat Wreck band at the time and participating in those comps. Like, did you process Rock for Sustainable Capitalism's lyrics as a band involved in that moment? Like, how did that feel for you to know that one of your favorite bands was like not on board with what was going on?
Well, so, I mean, you know, the thing is, like, we're the Lawrence Arms, so not to be like, I'm not trying to like put up the collar of my leather jacket when I say that,
right?
But it's like we don't care about literally anything,
yeah,
you know. And so, like, when Mike was like, "You want to put a song on this comp?" I was like, "Sure," and I made sure to give it the longest title possible so it would stick out on the back of the comp,
yeah,
you know. And then I was just like, and I'll just write a whip-ass song, and it'll be the fucking best song in the comp, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And it was, and
yeah,
you know, and it's fine. And I'm not even really trying to brag because people fucking throw away songs on comps, you know. And if
that
I
was
sit
a good
down
song too
to write a good song,
yeah,
like of course it's going to be the best song in the comp. So you give it the longest name, so people go, well, I got to check that out, and that's it. And then when Propaganda came around and was like, yo, this whole thing is fucking bullshit. I mean, to me, I was like, who fucking cares? Really? You know, like, I was just like, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah. I'd punch John Kerry in the face if you gave me the opportunity. Sure, I guess. I mean, like, I don't know. But, like, really, like, you know, and like this whole album came out in a time that was like so fucking like there was obviously like that entire like fucking Glenn shit was weird as hell. Glenn Lambert,
yeah,
and I mean, is it performance art or is it like, I don't know. I'm neither an art critic nor a psychiatrist, so I can't tell you. But what I will say is this was a record put out by very angry men at a very angry time, and this particular song spoke to something that was just like so incisive and whip ass in its kind of obscurity, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost like writing a song about like Diet Strawberry Yoo-Hoo or something, you know? Like it's so
specific.
It's so specific and fucked up. And I mean, the larger point which they break into by the end of the song is like, you know, like when it says, I'll rock back and forth on my 2-bit hobby horse. It's like, this is something that has like coddled me since my youth. You know, I'll tend the flowers by its grave and remember its name. Those are statements that are like, this is something that was important to me since I was a child.
Yeah.
And when it's gone, when I'm no longer part of it, I will still avow it properly, and I will still say its name. And, you know, just because we were young, it doesn't mean we were wrong. And it's like, those are unassailable punk rock hollow tip bullets, man. I mean, like, you know, like that is just, That's the shit, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we were young, it don't mean we were wrong. Like, give me a better line. I don't even think Minor Threat has a better line than that. Like, it's like, that's so whip ass. And, you know, so that's what that song meant to me. I was just like, I don't give a fuck about the part where he's like making fun of Tim Armstrong in the beginning, or then making fun of Fat Mike. And,
Yeah.
you know, more than I give a shit about that, I admire Fat Mike for putting out the record.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
You know, that's the much cooler move, to shit talk the guy putting out your record, and then for that guy to be like, yeah, okay, no problem.
Yep.
Put it out, and it's a picture of Fat Mike and
In
John
the liner
Kerry.
notes.
Yeah. And he's like, nah, that's fine. I'll do that.
Yeah.
You know? And that is kudos to Fat Mike, man.
I concur. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm spinning my wheels here talking about punk and like what is like punk rock hollow tip bullets. That's the punkest thing about this entire release.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. All right. So something else that stands out to me is the notion of the sacred space of music. And like, you know, I can get all like academic-y here on you for a second, but there's like a bunch of professors in the world who like study religion, who write about punk rock as like religious in nature. How do you feel about Chris's description of like the sacredness of music? Does that jump out at you at all?
No, it's fucking stupid. Music is cool and it's very important, but all it does is fucking do something for you. And I'm not trying to say Chris is stupid. Chris is very smart. Chris is
Obviously.
smarter than me. But like, all music does is unlock what's inside of you.
Yeah.
Like there's no such thing as music existing in a vacuum. Music is not. Nothing is safe. First of all, this is fucking punk rock, man. We got into this, and now we're talking about things that are sacred. It's fucking antithetical right there.
Yeah.
You know, fuck this music. Fuck these people. Fuck these bands. Fuck everything. No, you're wrong.
Okay.
Music's not important at all. Music wasn't a sacred thing. It might as well be a fucking cash machine. Who cares? What do you like? What are you saying? Like, the only thing that is sacred is when a fucking kid hears something that resonates with him and goes, that's just changed my life.
Yeah.
In whatever way.
Yeah.
And that is a chemical reaction. You know what I mean? For lack of a more sophisticated term, that is a sacred moment, but it has nothing to do with that fucking music, and it has nothing to do with any fucking scene. It has nothing to do with anything.
Gotcha.
I hate that shit too. That's bro hardcore shit to me. You know, like,
Yeah.
like, you know, I was talking about this last night with somebody, who was like, what bugs me the most about hardcore is it's about like, you know, moving on and looking ahead and pulling it together, and yet they refuse to change the sound of the genre whatsoever. And if you do, they're furious about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my God. So this song is like super long at 4:12, but it's not the longest song on this record. You know, I'm curious about your feeling about regarding Todd, Chris, and George's musical performance on this track, and maybe about their exploration of longer pieces on Potemkin City Limits that weren't quite as present in their earlier work. Do you have any particular instrumental performances of Propaganda that stand out on this track? How do you feel about the performance itself?
I think it's fucking top notch. I mean, you're talking about a band that has so much fucking visceral dexterity that they can do literally whatever they want, and this sounds like it's falling apart at the seams the entire time, and that's not accidental, and that's not like to be overlooked. You know, it's like the way that they construct this to be this like fucking I mean, this is the punk rock response to the John Kerry branded punk thing, right? And it sounds like it's just fucking falling apart. I mean, the production, you can hear the space between the guitar, the bass, and the drums. You know what I mean? It's just really wild, and just that like lone note guitar thing that like, I mean, Chris is a virtuoso. He could do that in any number of ways that it would sound super locked in, and instead it's like this like messy. It's beautiful, man. I love what goes on in this song. I love how fucking messy and splashy it is. Like when I think about the instrumentation on this song, it reminds me of like walking down a very dirty street in like Brooklyn or something, and like paint and garbage being thrown at me everywhere. Like every once in a while, it's like, here's an octave part, and it's like it doesn't come in clean, but ooh, here it is, or like, or here's a, like it, and it's just, it just defies the entire notion of everything you could possibly want out of a song, and in doing that, it becomes like one of, to me, the most quintessential rebellion songs, I guess.
Man, Brendan, seriously, like I'm sitting here like on the edge of my seat, just like full of adrenaline, like needing to like see this song performed live like right now. And like this is like the longest I've gone since like the 90s without seeing live music because of this freaking pandemic that will never end and this hellscape that we live in with this Groundhog Day nonsense. But like I feel like I have to have this right now. Like I need it so badly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's making me crazy.
Last time I went to a propaganda show, they played a bunch of new songs, and they were like, well, you're not going to like these. They play the new songs, and then they go, now we'll pander to you and play some old songs. And they did that like every time, and I was like, are you making it so the audience can't enjoy any of this?
That is so funny.
That's a very bizarre tack for traveling entertainment troupe to take. I'm going to make sure you hate this whole entire thing. And if you don't actually hate it, know that we do.
That's so funny. I saw the Failed States tour at the Firebird in St. Louis in 2012, and they played seriously like 10 of the 12 songs off of Failed States at that tour, and everybody in the crowd was like just so bewildered the entire time. It was amazing.
No, I mean, listen, who knows? They're their band, and I know that their whole thing is not being a legacy act, but when I'm the show I'm talking about, they left the stage, and Todd came out, and he just took the mic and was like, okay, hey there, we'd like to really thank the Metro. Oh, look up there, it's Joe from Rise Against. Yeah, back in the day, he used to work on a record distributorship, and we, I'd go in there. That was cool. You know what I'm saying? Oh, hey, Bobby. It was like, I was like, this show has been like such a fucking weird fuck you to your fans. I'm very shocked by it, to be honest. I love your band. I mean, did I not just speak passionately about fucking this very song that we were discussing on this episode? Like, I've put a lot of thought into your band, but I was like, I couldn't pick a more fucked up, divisive way to play a show. I guess, whatever.
That is amazing. All right. Well, Brendan, I know that you like also have spoken lovingly about your admiration of like No Means No elsewhere as well.
Yes.
What's up with these Canadian bands, man? Because I feel exactly the same way about No Means No, and I feel like they are so underappreciated. And like, I think about SNFU and like Chai Pig and No Means No and Propaganda. What's up with Canada?
It is, well, I feel like, it's like the old phrase, like there's something in the water or whatever. Like when you think Propaganda is not influenced by No Means No, like you think like those, SNFU and No Means No are like the things that those guys had around them, and it's like if you you fall in love with the daughter, the mom still is kind of hot. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, in this case, like, No Means No, I think, is like the coolest band in the world.
Yeah.
They're not my favorite. Like, I couldn't just put on No Means No casually. Like, I'm not gonna like do my taxes to a No Means No record, but but they, I can't argue with them being the coolest fucking band in the world. And yeah, I mean, it has not escaped my attention that they're all Western Canadian fucking weirdos. I guess maybe, it's the same reason people are like, oh, you know what, Pearl Jam and Nirvana, my two favorite bands. It's like, yeah, they kind of came up doing the same thing.
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Brendan, I have absolutely loved chatting with you today, man. This has been so much fun, and I have laughed so harder than I've laughed on doing this entire show, which is just so necessary for me right now. I needed this big time. Tell people where they can check out any projects that you want to plug real quick.
Yeah, sure. So I'm in a band called the Lawrence Arms, and we just put out a record called Skeleton Coast. It's on Epitaph. You can check it out literally anywhere you stream or buy stuff. It's on Amazon, it's on Spotify, it's on Bandcamp, or wherever you steal shit. I don't know what those are, but
yeah,
it's there too. And you can find me on Twitter at Bad Sandwich. It's really whelming.
It's completely something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
It's Brendan, remarkable.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, Brendan, this has been a real pleasure, man. I've been seeing your band for years and years, and to get your thoughts on these propaganda, these tunes, tell some stories. It is just so awesome to have your participation on this podcast, on Scripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. It's just been a real pleasure, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and keep up the good fight.
We used to believe the music was a sacred place, not some fucking bed machine.
All right, so we're back. That was my chat with Brendan Kelly from the Lawrence Arms, among many other bands, which he referred to during our chat. Brendan's perspective on all of that was super interesting. I love hearing his touring stories. I love hearing him about his stories of finding propaganda. He also surprised me a little bit a few times during the interview, which was delightful. I love when that happens. And, so Brendan was like around Fat Records during those years. And, I think that he's been very clear about the fact that he was friends with Fat Mike during those years, like very close. And so NoFX also responds to propaganda a couple of times, don't they?
Yeah. So I actually didn't know about this song, One Celled Creature. I'm not the biggest NoFX fan. I have 2 other albums and I've just never really kept up. But again, scrolling through the YouTube comments, which this song has a disproportionate amount of, I came across this song that says, "Life on a mattress in a robe in a room full of emptiness," which is a reference to the whole Glenn Lambert shtick on the album. "Knowledge has much better uses than self-pity and superiority. Maybe you are or could be the next Hoffman, Mahatma, or Chomsky, but no one will ever know. A sum of your parts are not going to change any hearts, not with hate in your eyes. In order to lead by example, you have to show a path to a better world, not a cell.
That's really heavy too.
Yeah.
And I know that, Fat Mike also talked about propaganda in the end of the Mad Caddies cover version of Nation States, which we'll talk about in a different episode. But, I feel like, and Fat Mike also said in the Fat Records documentary that this hurt him like deeply. I think that he was deeply hurt by the fact that propaganda put this song out. And, Brendan talking about how this was a, Fat Mike knew that this was about to happen and he still put the record out. Like Brendan gave Fat Mike some very clear props in that moment. But then today when I was watching the Fat Records documentary, Fat Mike says when he gets the record that he called up Brett Gurewitz and says, Brett, what should I do? And Brett Gurewitz tells Fat Mike to drop propaganda. And then a few years later, Brett Gurewitz signs propaganda to Epitaph, which I thought was a hilarious little detail, considering propaganda's on Brett's label right now. And Brett told Fat Mike, drop propaganda. So let's get into some of the lyrics here. Should we start at the beginning?
Yeah, I always thought the very first references in the song were about Fat Mike until I heard Brendan's interview. And I didn't make a connection here with Lars Friedrichsen. And the music video, like I imagined it being Fat Mike at like wherever he met John Kerry in that photograph. And that's what I always thought that was a reference to.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, the beginning of the song, everybody knows, starts off with a quip about a mohawked millionaire who may or may not be carrying a few extra pounds and walking around a party full of dudes. And so if you go onto Propaganda's website now, the lyric is revised to say, jackass mohawked millionaire, instead of the more body-shaming version of the original. So to me, this is an example of how Chris is like, sort of self-reflecting. And I bet if he were writing this song today that he would sing it differently, because his revision of the lyrics on the website, I think, is indicative of like a change of heart in how he portrays, the opening line of the song.
Right.
And I also did a little more digging, and there's like conflicting ideas about what video this opening line is about, what rock video. People are adamant that it's about Leave It Alone by NoFX from Punk and Drublic, but that doesn't make any sense to me for a few reasons. First, Mike does not have a mohawk in the Leave It Alone video. Second, there are women present in the video for Leave It Alone by NoFX. Third, Leave It Alone the video came out in like 1994, 1995, and I just can't see Chris throwing a 10-year-old music video in Fat Mike's face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then the other half of the YouTube comments seem to say that it's making fun of Lars Friedrichsen, the song To Have and Have Not. And to me, so I watched it, and
I did too.
Smokes, was that bad? And if you're like, that's your favorite song or you really love that album, I apologize. But to me, it was like it was written by a neural network after plugging in every farcical headline from the Hard Times. Like it was just one bad punk trope after another. I was like, I don't know, like that lyric, just because I dress like this doesn't mean I'm a communist.
Cringy.
Oh man,
I couldn't take it.
It was so bad.
Yeah. So like that is on the 2001 Lars Fredriksson and the Bastards record, which came out on Hellcat. And, I've seen Lars and the Bastards before because I like some Rancid records. And I think I saw Lars open up for Dropkick Murphys and Mississippi Nights in St. Louis one time. But I did not like Lars and the Bastards for some reason. And I do not like this particular song. No. Just because you're going forward doesn't mean I'm going backward. Like, I just don't like this song. And the video is literally Lars walking through a party of his pals with nary a female human woman in sight. So like, the gender problem in punk has always been there. And, we're two white males sitting here on this podcast talking
Right.
about music, and there's no women on this show like right now or today on this episode. And that matters to me, the fact that like we are sitting here doing this. And that punk rock has always had that kind of like boys club gender problem. So I wonder if Lars would do anything differently if he were shooting this video today,
Yeah, and in addition to, I think that the gender, the observations regarding gender is just like, all of the polo shirts and American flags on Dickies jackets, and just kind of some of the messages being sent out, whether intentional or not, seem to be kind of problematic.
Yeah. And, and Chris ends the passage about Lars by saying goof. And in Canada, this is what I'm finding. If you look this up, if you look up goof Canada slang, it says that it says that goof is prison slang in Canada for pedophile.
Oh, wow.
And this is like, so apparently this is like a super huge dig. And I wonder if this was lost upon American listeners entirely.
Yeah.
Because, we have things like, we call people, oh, you're as a goofball. You know what I mean? Like it's so like gentle in the US, like, oh yeah, goofball. But apparently, man, like I'm wondering if some of our Canadian listeners to this podcast can verify or clarify this in some of our social media comments, or send us an email at propagandipod@gmail.com to let us know about that, because I read it today and I was like, holy smokes, he calls him goof, which is prison slang for pedophile in Canada. And that was a really so I cannot responsibly state that is 100% what is happening here, but doing a little digging, I was a little disturbed by that too.
Yeah, so then transitioning from those sharp comments against Lars to then Fat Mike.
Yeah.
When did punk rock become so safe, which is a NoFX lyric.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me if I laugh in your face as I itemize your receipts and PowerPoint your balance sheets. I hear this year's Vans Warped Tour is going green. I guess they heard that money grows on trees. I hope they ship those shitty bands overseas like they did the factories.
Yeah.
And to me, that's just as scathing of a rebuke as it is funny.
Yeah.
Maybe without some of those possibly questionable phrases, whether it was, intentional or not. I don't know how anyone could have been surprised by these lyrics. Like I haven't seen all of that documentary, but again, like seeing people's responses, like it's propaganda. Like I would have said that same thing that you mentioned in the beginning. Like, of course they said that. And I also don't get feeling like you have to choose between either of the bands because, musically or, in terms of just ideas, they kind of scratch different itches. And I also kind of don't really buy the idea that they were just trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Or they were just trying to like, oh, we thought it would just be kind of a, like a funny thing, and we didn't expect them to take it so seriously. I mean, this is hitting someone intentionally, I think, in a way that these are kind of comments with knowledge of a person, to me, in a way that you kind of know they're going to hurt some.
Yeah, and those early Fat Wreck albums, I think I read an interview or saw an interview with Erin Burkett where she was saying that like all of those early Fat Records albums were selling 100,000 plus copies. And, if you're doing commerce at that level while having basically no corporate overseers, no, major, huge conglomerate corporate structures, just like Fat Mike and his employees at Fat Records. There's I think they said at one time they had 18 employees, and then they were down to 5 employees in the mid 2000s. I mean, that's not like the man to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and if you're selling that amount of volume, I mean, running a business is hard, and being a teacher is hard, and like I have, spreadsheets. I have a spreadsheet for this podcast. Like I have a guest spreadsheet where every time we do an interview with somebody or we finish an episode, I like color code the name of the song and I fill it in and I do a little strike through mark on the spreadsheet. So like, it's like, what do you do? Like, you have to have some kind of organizational structure for me,
Yeah, for sure. And I think with that, I definitely don't claim to know what is and isn't punk. I'm a middle school teacher. I used to listen to a lot of new metal. There are days where I drive my 15-minute walk to work, right? I spend a selfish amount of money on my own personal interests.
Mm-hmm.
So like I am not some whatever model of punk that is either authentic or cartoonish. But I'll say that by the time that this record came out, I kind of no longer connected with what I see as cookie cutter punk. And I felt more contempt than hunger for things like punk festivals, whether that's Vans Warped Tour or now Riot Fest. Like I've kind of burrowed myself away as much as I can from marketable, commercially successful music, partly because all the nonsense that comes along with it. I mean, I love Bad Religion as much as the next 36-year-old, but I'm not going to go see them play at a festival with a Ferris wheel and carnival food. That's just like not my bag.
Yeah. And see, I would 100% go to Riot Fest to see Bad Religion. And, I went to see the Misfits and Rancid and the Damned at Madison Square Garden last fall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten to this point where it's like, do I want to see these songs performed live or don't I? And I'm like so exhausted by just the mere act of staying alive year after year. And I'm like, God, I'm going to go see the Danzig Misfits and I'm going to spend so much money and I'm going to freaking Madison Square Garden for a punk show. What is wrong with me? And, it's just one of those things to where like I read this song and I hear this song and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm doing all of this,
I think as things kind of have ballooned, and because of that, it's hard for me to give a ton of credit to Fat Mike for releasing the album. And I only caught the documentary, the part with Propagandy, because he flat out says he did it to make money from it.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's just his way of getting Propagandy's goat. Like he knows it's going to piss them off saying like, yeah, he did it so he can get money.
Yeah.
But kind of regardless, to me, like that takes away any credit I might give to him. If he had said, well, whatever, like we'll put it out to have the perspective out there, but to say, oh, yeah, I did it to make some money. Like,
yeah. I bet if they saw the documentary, they were like, oh God, that was the perfect thing for Fat Mike to say. No, I've listened to a lot of interviews with Fat Mike. He's an interesting character, lives his life exactly how he wants to live it. And I was listening to an interview with him recently on the Going Off Track podcast where he admitted that he would like the chance to have not released some of the songs that he released on his recent Cokie the Clown solo record because it hurt people in his life.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So he released this insanely personal album where he offended people in his life and he lost friends over it. And, that to me was such an interesting listen. He said that on the Going Off Track podcast. And I was like, wow, Propagandy hurt him. He said it hurt him in the Fat Records documentary. Then he releases this Cokie the Clown record in like 2018 or 2019. And it hurt people in his life and they're no longer friends with him. So like Fat Mike, was hurt by Propagandy. And then he admittedly hurt people on his Cokie the Clown record and wishes he hadn't done that. You know what I mean? And like, I'm wondering if there's any like connection there. between something like this of him feeling hurt by music and then him hurting other people. And I just got to theorize and I have to wonder like if there's any, connection there, or if he's, put two and two together on the fact that he was hurt by a song and then he did the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right.
So, I also really liked the song on that NoFX War on Errorism record, Separation of Church and State. That's by far my favorite song on that whole album. And so whenever Propagandy quoted it, I thought it was like really funny because I actually really dug that song as well.
Yeah, I think ultimately more frustrating to me that Fat Mike endorsed John Kerry is I just personally as a history teacher is the constitutional process for electing presidents in the first place. I mean, we have a system that was put into place before the nascence of political parties and the two-party system, and before those things evolved. And we have like now just this dogmatic resistance to this system changing, whether that's ranked choice voting or dividing up electoral votes like Maine and Nebraska do. So like that kind of pisses me off more than, say Fat Mike's endorsement. And in the end, I think even if there were reforms to those things, I just think corporations and lobbyists would end up adapting to those changes to maintain their grasps on elected offices, whether that's states continuing to restrict voter rights, if it's gerrymandering and validating ballots and passing further voter restrictions to prevent marginalized people from participating in the democratic process that they're forced to worship in both schools and citizenship tests, but kept out of by manipulating the process itself.
Yeah, and Propagandy's made their views known on the way our current voting system is set up. In their song, it's like you can vote however you want, but power still calls all the shots. Even if democracy broke loose, they're going to make the economy scream until we vote responsibly. So
right.
They've been clear on that the whole time. But were you aware of or involved in the punk voter situation in 2004 at all leading up to the election?
I don't have any recollection about it at all. I don't remember anything about it.
That is amazing to me. How do you not remember that? I mean, it was on CNN and everything. Like, we're the same age. Like, you should have been like all over that. What were you listening to in 2004?
Mostly metal. Yeah. I was just reading and, doing classwork and, my first year away, my first full year away at school. I think it was. And I just, I didn't, I don't remember anything about it.
Wow.
I might've seen something or watched videos or, read a few articles, but it doesn't bring back any sort of, oh, here I was sitting down in the commons area or in the student union or in my dorm or whatever. I have no recollection of it at all.
Man, that's wild. Like, I think I went to Warped Tour in 2004. And like, I think that I may have like gotten registered to vote at Warped Tour by Punk Voter. You know what I mean? Like I remember Chris number 2 from Anti-Flag screaming about Punk Voter from the stage and like, Fat Mike talking about it on stage. But, I see both bands' points here. Yeah. And I'm not sure I care a whole heck of a lot because the world has only continued to get worse. And I can't really harp on such a specific instance from 2004 when I was like 21. And I was actually afraid that I was going to get drafted into a seemingly endless war and sent to Iraq. And some of my friends did end up going and participating in the war in Iraq. And like, I wanted nothing less in my life to be in that war. And like, whenever I got, So Long, Thanks for All the Shoes by NoFX, it's like they have the song Murder the Government and stuff like that. And so like, I really like looked up to these people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like in 2003, 2004, when like, I was like, oh my gosh, this war stuff is scary. I have no interest in that. I don't want anything to do with that. And I thought, so in 2003, 2004, I thought Fat Mike was doing something totally awesome.
Mhm.
I didn't see huge other perspectives in the way that, Chris Hanna would, like somebody who had like steeped himself in studying international relations and conflict, and like, just being really an outside observer as well, living in Canada and seeing like what U.S. empire does in nations abroad. I couldn't see any of that. All I knew in 2004 was that George Bush got us into a war under false pretenses, and I was
Yeah.
afraid of becoming a casualty in that exact war.
Yeah.
Therefore, punk voter equals good.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
then I found out that John Kerry voted for Iraq and defended his vote on multiple occasions. So it's like, it
Yeah.
makes me crazy. So,
Yeah.
given the fact that Bush's war in Iraq led to the deaths of like 288,000 people, I mean, including 185 to 208,000 civilians,
Mhm.
I looking back, I could see Fat Mike's point a lot about why he was doing what he was doing. Um, so you have two perspectives here, both of which require a person to make up their own minds about how they feel about something like punk voter and the fact that the movement doesn't exist anymore as
Mhm.
well, and that essentially the second it was unsuccessful, seemingly ceased to exist.
Right. Right. So what are your thoughts or memories about Warped Tour? Because I never went.
You weren't a Warped Tour guy?
I never went. No.
Okay, so the first year I went to Warped Tour was 1998,
Oh.
and it was magical. Like, I fawn over those memories sometimes because it was me and my closest friends, and we had seen NoFX and the Bouncing Souls in High Standard in April of 1998. We had seen Blink-182 and the Aquabats in February of 1998. And for all intents and purposes, Warped Tour of 1998 was like our third show, right?
Hmm.
And NoFX was playing again at Warped Tour 98. So in one day, me and my friends saw Frenzal Rhomb, Bad Religion. I met Bobby Shayer at the merch tent, who was Bad Religion's drummer at the time. I saw Rancid. I saw No Use for a Name. I met Chris Shiflett, who now plays in the Foo Fighters. I saw the Vandals. I met everyone in MXPX. I saw NoFX and like tons more. And like, I frankly could not believe my freaking eyes that I was seeing literally every band I wanted to see in a single day. But Warped Tour in 1998 for me was unreal because it was in a park called Booter Park in Valley Park. A lot of parks here. Valley Park, Missouri is a suburb of St. Louis. And there is a park there called Booter. And that is where Warped Tour 98 was. It was in like a county park with fields and shade and huge trees, and everything was grass. And it was truly amazing. I bought like 10 shirts with grass cutting money that day. I think I still have the No Use for a Name t-shirt that I bought at Warped Tour 98 also. So the next year, they moved Warped Tour in St. Louis to Riverport Amphitheater, and it was horrendous. And it was ruined, completely ruined. It's all pavement. It's scorching heat. There's no shade. And it was like $16 for nachos and a drink. That was in 99. And in Warped Tour 2000, the nachos and a drink was like $18. And then like and then it was like $20. And, and then I think by 2004, I think I was tapped out of Warped Tour forever. I'll never forget how like essential Warped Tour was to me before that. And, before I could drive and like you could see 15 bands in a day. But by the time like the Screamo phase kicked into full gear, like by the time Potemkin City Limits came out, I was already done with it. But what's so funny is I was thinking about this earlier, the fact that there is a Warped Tour reference in this song. And Brendan Kelly, our guest, I was listening to his Road to the Skeleton Coast podcast recently, and he has an episode on the O Calcutta episodes, O Calcutta Part 1, where he talks about this song from the Lawrence Arms called Warped Summer Extravaganza. And so, like, this to me is some fine form Brendan Kelly. The lyrics are so great. And like that, this is like my biggest regret about my interview with Brendan, is that I didn't ask him for his take on Warped Tour and the fact that he has a standalone Warped Tour song. And he's a guest on the Propaganda podcast talking about a song that references Warped Tour. Right. And so I'm like really angry at myself, but you should definitely go listen to Brendan's stories on his Patreon because it's such a funny episode. But these lyrics from the Lawrence Arms are amazing. And if you'll indulge me for a second, I actually want to read them because they are so wild. It is essentially a humongous takedown of Warped Tour in general. But as a little bit of context, Lawrence Arms got kicked off of Warped Tour in 2004.
I'm not surprised by any of this now.
Yeah. So
after his interview, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So the Lawrence Arms got kicked off Warped Tour in 2004, and they wrote a song about it. And here are the lyrics. And if you haven't heard the song, it is a banger. Also, it's the fastest Lawrence Arms song. So here's the lyrics. It's burning and it's burning. It's burning, a fire inside, an AFI reference, that I just don't believe. Well, some call it anger. Yes, some say frustration, but I think I call this big greed. This time the circus has left without us because they got kicked off, and we couldn't run away. The fringe is the center now. Hey boy, that's great. When I woke up in Hawthorne, I took down Ocean 2. The fairground to see everyone, so beautiful that I drowned in the waves of the haircuts, the spin kicks, and jumps. Well, I got my bottled water and my nachos. It came in at under $20, which is totally true. Completely true. $16 nachos and water, my first Warped Tour. And then here's where it gets really wild. I got this bad taste in the back of my mouth from my time on the back of the bus. Which is a reference to sexual assaulting young girls by bands on tour buses. This summer vacation, it's cheap and it's true. Its ideals are intact. It's the best we can do. This time you've turned into your own enemy, not sellouts, but dictating economies. These thieves and their flip-flops and bro attitudes are the very reason we do what we do. That taste line is super interesting to me because in March 2016, Warped Tour announced that they would be teaming up with an organization called A Voice for the Innocent to address the issues of sex crimes within the music scene. So like Brendan has this song about Warped Tour, and I didn't even ask him about it. And I'm so mad at myself because it is such a, it's such a propaganda thing to do, to just massively call out Warped Tour in that way.
Yeah, and I got to say that I really loved his description, like moving on from a Warped Tour, his observation of Chris singing almost like a funeral lamentation to punk. And that resonates here with, his lyrics for his band, clinging on to the music and the message that has meant so much, to Chris, even as it's being commodified and commercialized and dumbed down. And it reminded me, of just ask the candy-coated Joy Cam rock band selling shoes for venture capitalists, silencing competing messages, rounding off the jagged edges. I mean, it took me back to the Motor League. Yeah. And I really thought like that lyric about the hobbied horse never really connected in quite a way. And his description really made that pretty vivid.
What do you have any other thoughts on the lyrics or my chat with Brendan and all that are jumping out to you?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised about his interpretation of the sacred place and the sacred space of music, and I think that I disagree with him because music can be a sacred place. It isn't always, and it isn't for everyone. So like, it seems like clearly he doesn't think so. It isn't for him, but music isn't for me like, say, a sacred place if I'm listening to the band Sleep, right? Singing about some weed version of Dune. Or if I'm listening to a sci-fi like tech death band,
Yeah.
where every song is about alien abductions, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not a sacred place for me.
Agoraphobic nosebleed.
Right. Yeah. Right. If there's 100 songs on a mini disc,
Yeah.
and they're all 3 seconds long, like, no, yeah, I don't really see that as my temple.
Yeah.
But it can be, right? And it can be a sacred place. And for bands like Propaganda, to where I feel challenged through the music and through the lyrics and through all of these ideas that outward and inward, I do think it is an opportunity to have higher ideals that don't necessarily have to be self-righteous or exclusive or like Adam Sprinson said, like the gatekeeping, but perhaps not just being reduced to money. For this is like a dumb anecdote, but I love cooking. And every time I tell people like how I cook, or if they've tried my food, the first reaction people say is like, oh, you should open a restaurant. Or even the podcast, people say like, oh, are you guys making money from it? And I don't like how personal interests always get reduced to just some way to make money. Like, I get it if you're in a band, that's your livelihood, and that's how you can make some ends meet, right? But I don't think everything that we enjoy has to be tethered to just making a buck.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this a lot today because to do this podcast, I have a subscription to, our podcast service is called, it's a website where you upload the audio into it and then it blasts it out to like podcatchers like iTunes and Spotify. And we put out a lot of episodes. Like, I don't want to be constrained in when I put out an episode. So the plan that I pay for this podcast costs me $30 a month. Right. So because it's like I have like a 600 megabyte plan or something like that. So I have like this huge plan so I can put out these hugely long episodes, like sometimes 2 in a single week.
Yeah.
And it cost me like $30 to do that. So I was thinking about like, oh my God, I'm like literally losing money doing this show, which is a hobby. And it's frustrating because, I have a family and I'm like losing money on something. And I'm like, do I ask the listeners to like tip us? Do I like try to do that? Like, I feel weird about that because this is like, Propaganda's life's work. And we're just like 2 dudes like talking about songs. And like, the thought of asking anybody for money just seems like icky to me. Especially with this band. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are many bands like if they're, if I'm talking about like,
Kiss.
Sure. Absolutely. If this is a Kiss song by song podcast, I'd be like, hook
monetize left and right.
Yeah. But like with Propaganda, it just feels gross. But like I'm like very aware that I am losing money to do this constantly. So it's like, what if I ask listeners to like, every donation we got beyond the cost of running the show would be donated to like an organization of Todd Kowalski's choosing. You know what I mean? So say like I got like $75 and the show cost me $35 to run. And like I would have, some money and I'd email Todd and be like, hey Todd, what cause do you care about right now? And then send that money there. But then people would be like, well, what if I don't like that organization? I don't want my money going to that because you're getting a surplus. And I'm just like, man, how do you win?
You don't.
So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, which is super related to doing this show, this personal experience that we're talking about, about rock for sustainable capitalism, podcast for sustainable capitalism. You know what I mean? Like it's like making something that you care about, which is artistic. I mean, I'm not saying what we're doing here is art, but it's similar to me. Like this is something that I love doing. I love hanging out with you. I love talking about these songs. But it's also like you know, uh I, like putting a new roof on my house costs like, you know, $8,000.
Mhm.
And so, you know, every month where $30 comes out of my bank account to do a podcast, you know, I don't put a new roof on my house for that much longer. You
Yeah.
know, so it's a struggle, caring about things like that, and the sacredness conversation. You know, I'm glad you said that too, because that was an interesting point that you made ages ago before I went on a long tangent about the cost of podcasting. Do any of their lyrics jump out at you?
Yeah, I think Brennan's description of just because we were young don't mean we were wrong as being even better than Minor Threat. You know, like that being such a perfect lyric. He used the phrase hollow points a few times, which I thought was rather applicable. And I'd say that's probably the best lyric in this song, but it's not my favorite. My favorite is just the very end. We may face a scorched and lifeless earth, but they're accountable to their shareholders first.
Yeah.
And I think that is, you know, more involved, and it's not as maybe memorable, but it is more relatable as I look around the world and try to understand it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big, big endeavor for companies to shift everything about the way they do business. So you think about like an oil producing corporation, you know, they're trying to reframe themselves by getting into green energy as well. But we know where the money's really coming from,
Yeah.
you know? So, and they will do that until they are absolutely 100% forced to stop.
Right.
And no one's going to do that. No
Mhm.
one's going to be able to get that to happen. It's just, ugh. That takes me down a cynical doom rabbit hole that I am not currently prepared to go down.
Okay.
So,
Let's talk about the music instead.
okay, fine, sounds good. Tell me what you think about this song.
Yeah, I think the opening with like the fading intro, it has those rising cymbals,
Mm-hmm.
feels like something is going to happen, right? There's like a
The curtain rising.
showdown.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And the main riff has this punk attitude without necessarily sounding predictably punk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not some paint by numbers, angry, you know, punk riff. And there are all these great pieces that adorn it, kind of like the uh, I like the message that it sends, or that real cool mini solo pull off riff. Yeah, before with a rebel yell.
Yeah.
And the song comes back to that main power chord
Yeah.
structure, but all of those little touches make it seem a little unpredictable.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like how Ben from Heart Sounds described them, like bringing back an idea, but just for a little bit and then switching it up again. And I think I really noticed that, even if it isn't as technical as, say, duplicate keys
Yeah.
that Ben talked about, there's a lot going on here that kind of branches off from like this main thread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a totally different kind of song. Like whenever we talk to Sue Lin about Tertium Non Datur, how it just goes from riff to riff, and it's just so wild and it's busy. Like this song, it's far more about the tiny little flares than the constantly shifting riffs and tempos. You know, like even things like When All Your Fears Collide is so shifting and back and forth to like different riffs and stuff so frequently. And this one's like, right. And it just seems like, you know, this to me, I was like shocked today by how different this song is than like so much stuff on supporting cast. You know, this song seems so straightforward in comparison, but I think that the real magic lies within those little flair moments, like the mini solo and the dun dun with the rebel yell.
Yeah,
you know? I love that kind of stuff. But you know, I don't have too much to say about the music of this song. Like, it's super cool. But it's not even close to like one of my favorite propaganda musical performances. Like the music on this song is impressive, but like I think that I've always been so enamored by the lyrical content of this song and the massive drama and beef that this song started essentially. But it really is like a straightforward song for the first 2 minutes and 40 seconds, but the entire groovy outro, like after the lyrics, like that's how the world works.
Yeah.
Like that stuff is just fantastic. And in headphones, it sounds so great. And, I really get into that, like that outro guitar lick for the last like 30 seconds or so with no singing.
Yeah, the variation in this, like I really love how the guitars get sort of softer. There's less distortion when there's that break during singing about like music is a sacred place.
Yeah.
And I feel like the lyrics are able to be highlighted a little bit more there. And then I'll rock back and forth. Like that part musically is so evocative to me.
Yeah.
There's like a sadness in the melody and in the music, and the same with like I'll whisper her name. The chord progression there is so bright and full, and the riff just after, just so I know I'm not insane, that leads up to that outro with like that palm muted tremolo picking part. Yeah, that reminds me a lot of Comply Resist. Like I love that riff a ton. And I never really considered the song being like musically an act of defiance, like Brendan said. He said contrasting the John Kerry brand of punk rock, like the lyrics for sure. But the music itself, I didn't really take as being that sort of self-referential meta finger pointing thing like Back to the Motor League. Like here, they definitely seem to be like drawing a line with those 3-chord punk fans. And I think it seems to almost be kind of intentional now. And I hear an occasional maybe lone note like at the very end of the song, which gives it a sort of like a calculated, unpolished feel. So it wouldn't sound like a band that would have been on TRL in the earlier mid 90s. But I don't know if I hear it as dark or as Brennan said, it was like a dirty street. That's actually how I visualize pretty much every Lawrence Arms song.
Oh, interesting.
It's all about sitting at a bar and there's like, there's ash everywhere and like the counter is sticky from beer. And that's how every Lawrence Arms song feels to me. The ones that I know at least. But even with like the cynical lyrics, especially at the end, I get this like ascending visual, not a dark street or alleyway in Brooklyn. Some hovering vista that shows like a bright landscape that's being threatened. And even if there's like some threat in the distance, there is a little bit like of a flint of hope, because saying like, just so I know I'm not alone. Like I feel like he's saying that, but he knows he's not alone, and there are others who do feel the same way.
Yeah. It actually is such a sad ending to the song. Like I feel like it like goes from like making jabs to being like, I'm just so sad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like the lyrics towards the end of the song are just so sad. Like whispering her name, flowers by her grave, the show of hands. It's a sad ending, like when it's like almost like a mourning of a death.
Yeah.
Death
of punk.
Yeah. And so like I feel like this was a I don't think that he was definitely not like in a super good mood when he was writing this. You know what I mean? Like he's like, this is my entire life that I've like dedicated myself to this, and to watch it turn into this like Warped Tour bus traveling like sideshow, trying to put a guy who voted for the invasion of Iraq into office, and he's just like, what am I even doing here? And I think this might have led a lot more to his thoughts of propaganda being the North Korea of punk.
Yeah, right. So what about some teachable moments? What are your takeaways from this, Greg?
Man, to me, this song is about standing up for something you deeply believe in a certain moment where it's relevant for you to stand on that principle and stand firm. So what I also want to say is that doesn't mean like, so if you stand firm on a principle at a given moment in time, it doesn't mean that that's exactly how you will always feel about that situation. You know, like you can read and watch interviews with Chris and Fat Mike and Todd and everybody involved with this situation. But years have passed since then. And between all these people, it seems like it's like water under the bridge now. You know, like I'd mentioned earlier, the 20-year How to Clean Everything, the repressing of Potemkin City Limits. But in this moment, Propaganda felt very strongly about a certain issue as, you know, people from living outside the US, and they did something that they thought was important in the moment. It wound up hurting Fat Mike's feelings, and, you know, maybe that was an unforeseen consequence, maybe it wasn't, but they stood firm on a principle in the moment when they felt it mattered most. And maybe they feel differently about it today. You know, feelings seem to have softened, but I think that it's pretty admirable the way Propaganda did what they felt was right. And I think that it's pretty admirable that Fat Mike rolled with it and put out this great record anyway. And that's kind of my teachable moment about like realizing when you have a principle that you need to stand on, knowing full well that like in 10 years you may change your mind on that issue.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. I'd say for me, like that cartoon, there's a drawing of two people facing each other, and they're pointing at a number, and one sees it as a 6 and the other sees it as a 9, and they're arguing over what they see. That comes to mind for me. Like it says something about perspective, and just because you're right doesn't mean I'm wrong. And you know, Fat Mike in a way was right for wanting to use some of his influence to prevent Bush from being elected. And
he influenced me, like,
yeah,
straight up. I fully admit that I was like, I had the Not My President t-shirt. I wore it.
And for him, like, to prevent Bush from being reelected in like the easiest way that he knew how, right? And Propaganda was right for calling him out on it. And it kind of reminds me of the lyrics in Apparently I'm a PC Fascist. You know, I'll call you on your shit, please call me on mine. And for me, like, just to have some transparency, given that I'm not under the microscope as, you know, the member or like the owner of a punk record label or in a band, that like my heart and my soul probably agree with Propaganda, but more times than not, in the context of electoral politics, my body has agreed with Fat Mike. You know what I mean? So I think there are all these individual struggles that we have to have. What we feel okay with, either endorsing doesn't seem like to be the best word, because that just seems to be what we're okay supporting, right? Supporting in various ways. And I just think in the end, there probably aren't any really easy answers. And it's just a process. It's a process of finding things out.
Yeah. And, you know, it's also like what we like are willing to swallow as well, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When I say like my body agreeing with Fat Mike, doing so while holding my nose, you know? It's
yeah. Your body agreeing with Fat Mike, like in the voting booth, as a citizen of this country, which has perpetuated horrible acts, and Chris Hanna saying, you know, George Bush sent people into a war in a foreign nation on unfounded principles and lies. And the person that you are shaking hands with here in the liner notes, through his vote in Congress, was a part of authorizing that permission.
Right.
And, you know, so I see both sides of the argument very clearly, especially in this moment that we're living in right now, leading up to an election. I'm having like flashback trauma of like 2004.
I feel like a lot of the conversations that are taking place now resonate and they echo and they reverberate with 2004.
Yeah, yeah. And then Bush was an incumbent on the Republican ticket, and pretty easily won. And that's an intriguing observation that I'm interested to see how that plays out here in a few months. But I found a YouTube comment as well that said, prediction: I would not expect to see Propaganda's next record on Fat. Prediction true.
Nice. One I found said 2 minutes and 10 seconds to 2 minutes 40 seconds is the most profound 30 seconds in the entirety of punk rock, in my opinion. And I found one more, and it says, you want a show of hands? You got it. Hands up right now.
Nice. Very good. Can I please see a show of hands?
Yeah, right.
Love it. Love it. All right. So what do you rate Rock for Sustainable Capitalism from Potemkin City Limits?
I kind of went back and forth on this, but it might seem like I'm giving them out willy-nilly. This is another 5 for me. This song is my version of what I think quintessential punk is. It makes me think about history and politics and my place and all of those things. And it reminds me not to look for easy solutions, but to find long-term processes for outward and inward improvement. And it's pretty different from a lot of my other favorite songs, but I've thought about it so much, I couldn't give it anything other than a 5.
Gotcha. I'm going to give it a 4 because I have 3 5s on Potemkin City Limits, and this isn't one of them.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 4. But just because there's more on Potemkin that I like more. So anyway, so that is our episode on Rock for Sustainable Capitalism from Potemkin City Limits. What a wild conversation that was. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to find us on Twitter, you can at PropagandyPod or on Instagram at PropagandyPod. And thank you once again to our special guest, Brendan Kelly, for your personal observations and sharing some fantastic stories with us for the podcast. We appreciate your time and energy, especially since you podcast so much for your other show. We appreciate you jumping on ours as well. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we will see you next time. Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda, is created, hosted, and produced by Keith Goff and Greg Soden. Musical clips on this show are composed and performed by Propaganda. Artwork on the show is by Justin Santora, who can be reached at justinsantora.com. You can find us on Twitter at PropagandyPod and on Instagram at PropagandyPod. If you like the show, please drop a rating on your podcast app of choice and subscribe to receive future episodes. Tell your friends. Thank you so much for listening.